Welcome everybody to another episode of our comprehensive training series called SEP Knowledge Booster. For this video, I have the pleasure to hand over to you today's presenter, Ralph, who will talk about the next hot topic with the SEP Sesam backup software. 3, 2, 1, launch!
Welcome to our knowledge booster video for Hyper-V. So that video, I start with a few slides, a few technical explanations, the typical, in the beginning, and afterwards I'm directly switching to my demo system with an available Hyper-V backup to show you how the Hyper-V backup is configured, how it works, how you can do the restore, what types of restore are available, and all that stuff that you normally need when you go on with our Hyper-V module. So just the configuration and the restore possibilities that we have now, and also short outlook for the upcoming release for Hyper-V. Okay, so first, we start with, let me say, some standard benefits, what we have with SEP. That means easily as to say, we have a Hyper-V agent, of course, but you have to install this Hyper-V agent only on the hypervisor itself. So you can do agentless backups of the virtual machines, of course. You have the possibility to do restores via our Fat GUI client with our restore wizard, as you know it from the past. But of course, with our newest release, you have also the possibilities to use our WebUI for the restore. You can do single file restores from the full backups currently, and we of course support the standard file system mounts or storages from Microsoft. That means we have SMB 3.0 and cluster shared volume support integrated out of the box, so you don't have to configure anything for that. From our perspective, the most powerful features are inside the product itself, the Sesam server itself, because we have now our RESTful API and our command line interface completely documented and integrated. That means you can automate all these processes fairly easy. You don't have to configure everything manually with the GUI, which is extremely interesting, of course, in large-scale environments or for automated deployment. That means you can also deploy the agents via an MSI installer, and you can also directly configure and perform the backups with an automated process. The online documentation, our wiki, we will have a look on our wiki later to see what you need when you start with the configuration for Hyper-V. High quality support out of Germany. Of course, you know our support crew. That means you have 24/7 support. Now at times with our WebUI, it's even easier to get support because you can directly contact our support crew with the necessary information out of the WebUI from the browser. You don't have to search for anything. You automatically get your ticket. And this is a straightforward process. Regarding the market, of course, we have a flexible pricing model that is future-proven. So I will also have a few words for the new features with the next release. The software is developed in Germany. Our headquarters is in Germany. And as you know it, we have a lot of satisfied customers. Yeah, because you can directly contact us. You can get in touch with us as you know it from the past. We have a lot of open ears for you. So this is, in my opinion, one of the biggest strengths of our company. One of the success stories for Hyper-V, it's a customer from Vienna. The utilities and services for Vienna new city, that is, let me say, one of the providers of critical infrastructure like the water system and everything. And they switched to SEP, as they have a mixed environment, which makes it also extremely interesting because they have virtualization based on Citrix Zen or on SUSE Zen. Then they have Hyper-V in combination. They have normal Windows operating systems, but they also have OAS servers with group-wise. So in these heterogeneous environments, SEP Sesam is extremely powerful because we support almost all of these applications, databases of this OS and hypervisors in that environment with our SEP Sesam server, which makes it pretty easy to consolidate all the backup products with one backup product and go straight in the same direction, but ease up the complete work. How does the backup process work with SEP Sesam for Hyper-V? It's let me say that the typical process that we have in the beginning. That means we have to install an agent on the hypervisor. This could be normal agent. It could also be our proxy server media agent. How we call it is RDS, remote device server, because then you are also able to perform LUN-free backups directly out of the box to the mounted storage device. The Sesam backup is in control of that whole process. Then you get the VDX or VFLL or whatever the virtual files. In that case, we have the VHD that we then back up via VSS snapshots. So also in that case, the typical process that you know from Microsoft, then you are able to perform copy backups, full backups, differential, incremental backups. In that case, we have a focus on the full and the incremental backups. The incremental backups are now at times done in the standard backup routine. That's the reason why we can only do the single file restores from the full backup. But and that was, let me say, also one of the outlooks I wanted to mention. With the next release, we also support the so-called resilient change tracking backup. This is nothing else than, as you all know it from other hypervisors, the so-called CBT backup, change block tracking backup. But Microsoft calls it RCT, resilient change tracking, which makes it completely, let me say, completely transparent for us to combine the CVT or the RCT backups of the full backups, that you are also able to use this backup chain also for the single file restores. So this will come with the next release in a few months, that we also support the newest technologies that Microsoft is offering with its backup API. Another powerful feature, we have inline deduplication integrated with our patented SI3 dedup store. So you can use our integrated software inline deduplication. You can use an appliance for deduplication. As an example, the HP Store Once Catalyst systems. Catalyst protocol is also supported by SEP, or you can use the file system dedup from Microsoft itself. So also here, feel free. You have all the options available that you need to work with that directly out of the box. And then we store the VMDKs or the VHDs on the backup target. Very important for you, hint from my side, single file restore or instant recovery is not possible from a tape backup, of course, because it's a bit complicated when you try that. And when you use the compression or the encryption that we have, then it is also not possible to do a single file restore from the full backups. In that case, it makes really sense to work with onboard, let me say, algorithms like from the Catalyst protocol, the Store Once, or from the file system or whatever, to combine that. They have also integrated encryption, which makes in that case really much sense when you want to have also single file restores available. The backup features, let me say, the common standard that you should have is integrated, and a few plus features: VSS snapshot-based online backup, of course. For me, very important cluster-aware backups. That means when you move when the virtual machine is moved from one hypervisor to another hypervisor, that we don't restart the process, make a new full backup for that virtual machine. So also in that case, the backup chain is kept in place for the full and incremental backup. So you don't have to be aware of the movement of virtual machines. We support, as mentioned, cluster shared volumes and also SMB connected shared volumes directly out of the box. You can do the laundry backups with our remote device server just by directly attaching the backup storage to that remote device server, and the remote device server is then transporting the data directly, the mounted snapshots directly to that backup storage without using the LAN. Copy full incremental backups are possible. Copy backups are the same like full backups, but they don't affect the full incremental backup chain. So in case you need a fast backup for dev testing purposes, you can do always a copy backup that you have a second stage backup available. We support Hyper-V version 2019 and lower, of course. So also in that case, always the latest version is supported. We support for the restore, generation restore. That means we support the full ink chain. You just have to select the backup from the time frame that you need, and that's it. We will see that. You can restore an original virtual machine to another location. You can also rename a virtual machine, so you can automatically create a new virtual machine out of that backup. You can also use separate Hyper-V systems. That means also, let me say, between different locations, different data centers, as an example. You can do the single file restore, as mentioned, from the full backups, and a path restore of a virtual machine directly into the file system. That means you can do a cold restore of that virtual machine just to, let me say, restore the disks, the VHDs, to a location to work with that disks, as an example, without restoring the complete virtual machine and bring it online. The next step I will show you are the most important things in the live demo, what you have to look at when you work with Hyper-V. First of all, the documentation, of course, and then second, the configuration for the backup and this stuff. And for me, very important also that you get a feeling for the config from scratch, how easy it is. It is very important also to say that this is a demo system. So I have just one Hyper-V server with a few VMs, what I took for that demo, and I installed that a few days ago, fairly easy. I used my own system, my own Windows server as the sesam server, installed the sesam server package, and used one hypervisor that we have in-house for demo purposes to show you how that works. Okay, so let's switch to my demo environment. Here we go. First of all, we have our FatGUI client used because I have installed a sesam server. So on that system, as you can see it here, I have the sesam server installed, just a download package. You can download the sesam server at any time from download.sep.de. Afterwards, we start the sesam server. Then I created in the topology a location called Hyper-V. You can see that here. And I added my Hyper-V server to that location. Fairly simple, just installing an agent on that Hyper-V server, on that hypervisor. Choose the name of that hypervisor or the IP address to configure a new client. And then you have all the parts here available that you need to get access to that client. That is the first part that you have to configure. So in that case, when you configure this client, you get asked, is that a Hyper-V server? You say yes, then you have to insert the permissions for that server, and then you can start creating backups. We can create a backup just by saying here, new backup task, browsing that hypervisor, which is a standard Windows server, as you can see it here. So we have also additional options available, like doing a bare system recovery or a bare metal recovery backup, or choosing a virtual machine for the backup. So in that case, I'll choose a second machine because I already have one machine. Let's take this server here, click on OK. Then I have created a task group, and this task group is also attached to a schedule for full and incremental backups. So I just select this task group, click on OK, and that's it. So this is the main configuration you have to do to configure the backup for that virtual machine. Also important is, as I mentioned this before, you can do that, of course, all out of the box with our command line interface with predefined scripts in large scale environments without using the GUI all the time if you want to automate this process. And you can monitor or look at these scenarios and use that also for your own monitoring system with our REST API. So also here, this is our SEP philosophy. Everything is completely open, everything is documented. You just have to use it. And this is for me the most important part. When I start with the configuration and everything, the first thing I do is I normally have a look in our technical documentation. And our technical documentation is, of course, our wiki, wiki.sepsoftware.com. Here you'll find everything that you need. So here you have the quick start guide, how to install a SEP sesam server and how to configure the sesam server. I also created a so-called sesam basic administrator online training, which is sort of 5 hours training that you can have a look into it, which explains everything completely in detail. But of course, you have to listen to my voice for 5 hours. Sorry for that. Next step is the documentation. Here you find all the stuff that you need when you have to, let me say, configure special applications, hypervisors, whatever. So also for the databases here, group-based solutions. And of course here, for the Hyper-V systems, you have the Hyper-V configuration here available, the backup configuration, the restore parts that you can do. You have to you can have a look here in the Hyper-V backup video that is also explaining everything pretty straightforward. So please remember that, wiki.sepsoftware.com, and then have a look here in the Hyper-V documentation. And very important for me, I mentioned it before, we have also additional advanced references here. That means we have our administration manual here. We have our command line interface manual here for automation processes. So as you can see, extremely important. First of all, always go to wiki.sepsoftware.com. Yeah, this is the starting point, I would say. After the starting point, of course, you should have a few backups available. That means, first of all, in my case, I just right-click started with immediate start a few backups so that we have at least 1 or 2 backups available to show you how that works. Second part is, later on, when you want to configure the access for our WebUI, you can also grant rights and use our permission management here and add different users or groups to that location. This location is called Hyper-V, and this is extremely important later on when you have other people that want to have access to the WebUI, to the dashboard, everything, to the restore assistant that we have with the browser available, because then you can also nowadays control who gets access. Let me say one dedicated person or IT department that is responsible for virtualization. What you want, you can also combine that with Active Directory or with LDAP, the user rights and everything. So we have our own user rights database, of course, which works authored, but it can be synced with Active Directory and LDAP. This is very important in case you need that. Also, this is integrated, and this is a very powerful new feature, this user rights management, because with that you are able to give people dedicated access to specific hosts, to specific applications. Okay, the backups are done. So what can we do in the next step? In the next step, we could use the FatGUI client, the restore wizard of that FatGUI client as we have it here, to do specific restores. That means specific restores, I mentioned that before, the single file restores. So in that case, I pick one of the latest backups. And with that latest backup, we can say, okay, we want to have specific virtual machines. That is one option that we have available. Or the other option is that we can say, okay, we want to mount these specific backups. That means we have one of the backups available and say, okay, in the mount part, we do a restore of single files. That is also possible here with the restore wizard if we want to have that. And we can also then select different restore options here. As an example, what we want to have for the restore itself, like another hypervisor, create a new virtual machine. All that stuff is possible. So this is, let me say, the part that you are able to do with our restore assistant, with our restore wizard when you work with the FatGUI client. So here you have all the features available, I would say, that you normally know. You have also the property overview, you have the result overview, and all that stuff that you need from the FatGUI client. This is I would say the overall package. But what we try to do now is that we get all these features and all that stuff more and more integrated into our let me say WebUI, complete WebUI dashboard, restore wizard, and everything. So this, let me say, is the actual status, a bit in quotes, the old world. And with the next release, we will also have all the features in the WebUI available, what I will show you now. That means, or what I have shown you here, that means here in the WebUI, let's switch to that one. It's fairly simple. I'm logged in as the administrator, so I have full rights. You can see here the overview of the backups. Of course, as I mentioned it's just a demo system. I made a backup of today. You can see the status of the backup, which is successful. But let me have a look more. Here we have 3 successful over the week. Okay. In case a backup is not successful, this is also a cool feature here. You would have an overview here with the unsuccessful backups. You can also just click on that unsuccessful backup like I did here. Go to the status itself in detail. We have here the main log and the trace log directly attached. And this is, in my opinion, one of the best features of the WebUI. Then you just click on send mail, and if you have an appropriate email program available, it automatically creates a unique ID, sends that to support@sep.de, attaches the logs that are needed, and they generate a ticket ID for you and can directly go straight forward and help you out going remote on the system, whatever. So this is for me the most important feature, directly out of the box. You have support available with our WebUI. You have a dashboard overview here, so you can see how many backups are performed. For, as an example, Hyper-V, you can dig in here in detail, which is pretty cool. You have the monitoring available, what we have seen in the FatGUI client. So here you get also an overview of the performed backups over the days. of the migrations, replications, all that stuff is now completely integrated into our WebUI. By the way, the WebUI is fairly simple to reach. Just use the port, the name of the server /SEP/UI, and you're ready to go. And the last part here, of course, the Restore Assistant. When we click on the Restore Assistant, it opens our new Restore Assistant. Here we have the virtual machine available, and this is for me the cool stuff. You can choose the virtual machine, you can choose the backup of the virtual machine that you want to have, and in the next step, you have the same options available what we have in the FatGUI client, except one point. The single file restore at the moment is only available with the FatGUI client. This will be changed in the next release. So at the moment, please be aware of that. You can do only a full backup of the virtual machine. Of course, also here you can create a new virtual machine. You have the same execution options. So in the next step here, do not start the virtual machine, stuff like that. So you can also, as we mentioned it, just restore the disks to a default target, I would say, to mount the disk to use the files. This is, of course, also available. You don't have to recover the full virtual machine to get the files. And then in the last step here also, you get a summary of everything, and then you can start the restore, and the restore is started. Here you have also the account management available. If you have specific restore accounts, you can reduce the access to only this feature like Hyper-V or everything and work with that. Another cool part on that is that this is, of course, working also with all other common hypervisors. So if I choose my demo system, my other demo system as an example, I have to log in here. In that case, I'll use the administrator account that you can see the difference. So just pick the administrator, sign in. Then opening the restore wizard, and you can see I have a lot more available. I have Hyper-V available, KVM, Red Hat Virtualization, all that stuff. So if I change my account now to my specific restore account as an example, as you can see it here, Hyper-V is not available anymore, but I have still KVM and Rev left. So this is exactly what I mentioned before. The user permission, the permission management is now completely available and integrated, which is for me a very important feature. Okay, so as you can see, this is fairly easy, straightforward. Just install the agent, work with the backups in the beginning to get a feeling for that, and afterwards you can then, yeah, directly go on and mount the data and everything. So, for the end, one thing that is extremely important for me, you have also, as I mentioned and have shown you before, integrated bare metal recovery, burst system recovery in our case for the hypervisors. That means you can also directly protect all the hypervisors with SEP, not only the virtual machines, so that you have everything protected in your virtualization environment. And the combination of multi-hypervisor configurations, for me, extremely important. That means we have such a huge base of hypervisors available that you are able to combine them. This is extremely important for companies that have heterogeneous environments and decide to go not only for one hypervisor solution, like a dual vendor strategy to be on the safe side. We don't care. You can use that for almost any kind of hypervisor. We support a lot of different hypervisors. If you're not quite sure if your hypervisor is supported or your combination is supported, have in the end a look on our support matrix. When we have a look here in the wiki, then you can see that in our support matrix, which is wiki.sepsoftware.com, of course. And here you go to support matrix, and then you can see what kind of operating system, what kind of hypervisor and what kind of combination for you is supported. This is, yeah, the first look I would have when I have questions open if my system is supported, of course.
Hey, are you impressed of what you have heard until now? Then you might be interested in gaining more information about this powerful backup software. After our SEP specialist has talked a lot about a specific backup topic, during the next roundabout 4 minutes, I would like to give you a short overview of the general capabilities of SEP Sesam. I'm sure you will be impressed of what is really possible with this product. This is essentially based on 6 strategic columns. The first and most important topic is our huge support matrix. There is an agent available for almost every operating system, database, or application you can imagine. Market leaders as well as niche products, for example for mailing, Exchange or Copano. Even a lot of older versions are supported, because all old SEP clients are still compatible and usable with the latest SEP backup server, for example NetWare, or outdated Windows versions. The second strategic focus is our strong partnership with SAP. While being 2 German companies, we work together from SMB to enterprise, from Business One to S/4HANA. SAP has the most complete set of certified agents for the SAP portfolio, including NetWeaver running on Oracle or MaxDB, Linux or Windows, HANA or ASE, known as Sybase. Moreover, SAP not only supports simple HANA backup via the backend interface, but also functionalities like multi-tenancy, housekeeping, scale up, scale out, HANA Studio integration, disaster recovery, and efficient performance by parallel HANA backend channels for backup and recovery. Third, we focus on our partnership with HPE. Besides the perfect fit with our SAP partnership, this means that we step by step integrate deeper into the HPE portfolio. We just released our HPE certified Catalyst integration, including Catalyst Copy and Cloud Bank Storage. More to come soon. As a fourth element, we are proud of our multi-hypervisor support. By supporting more than 8 hypervisors, we are a perfect fit into every virtual environment beyond VMware and Hyper-V, or in every multi-hypervisor infrastructure. Based on our Unix and Linux history, we have a strong focus on open source. This becomes apparent from our partnerships with Red Hat and SUSE, but also from the support matrix, where you can find agents for open source products like KVM, MariaDB, or Postgres. Last but not least, we see the market going cloud. With our Cloud Application Protection Service products, we help you to back up your Office 365, G Suite, Salesforce, or Microsoft Dynamics environment. With Office 365, we back up the full set of features like Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, public folders, and Teams. With SEP Sesam, it is possible to run completely in AWS, replicate to a public cloud via S3, or simply use Catalyst Cloud Bank Storage and let HPE Store Once do the replication work. All these topics are covered in separate videos. Therefore, we can proudly state that SEP Sesam is the most powerful backup software. Well, if you are now interested in knowing more about SEP, you can find detailed information about market, sales, product and company on our webpage. Profound technical information can be found in our large wiki online documentation. If there are any questions left, please do not hesitate to contact us via email to sales@sepsoftware.com. So, I'm pretty sure that I'll see you next time when you're back on Tube. to boost your SEP knowledge again.